This video is an overview of the Sui cryptocurrency. Sui is an extremely fast chain that has a large number of consumer-facing applications. In today's video, I'll talk about why you should care about Sui, give you everything you need to get started. I'll talk about airdrop and DeFi opportunities to earn yield on Sui, and then I'll talk about some risks that you should know before you invest in this token, including its tokenomics. Welcome back to Dynamo DeFi. My name is Patrick. And before I get into the video, I want to remind you that this is not financial advice. That's why I'll talk about both the positives and the negatives and leave it up to you to do your own research. Now let's get into it. To start, what is Sui, where did it come from, and why exactly should you care about it? Sui originated from Facebook's crypto project known as Libra. And although this project was shut down for regulatory reasons a number of years ago, two projects that are now making waves in the crypto world originated from it. Those are Aptos and Sui. And both of those stand out by being very fast, extremely fast chains, and also by using the Move programming language for smart contracts. Move was a specialized programming language that was developed as part of Facebook's Libra initiative. And so to go through the basics of Sui, it is a smart contract layer 1. That's like Ethereum, like Solana, like other chains. You can build applications on it that use smart contracts, and it's its own layer 1. It's not a layer 2 like Arbitrum or Base that settles onto another chain. So you can think of it as its own ecosystem. And you can see here that if you go to Sui's website, then what they really emphasize and what I would think about if I was looking at it is that it's extremely fast. They boast 297,000 transactions per second, and their time to finality is only 400 milliseconds on average. However, while Sui is extremely fast and extremely cheap to use, in my opinion, that is not enough to differentiate it. And the reason why is that we already have Solana. And although Sui claims to be faster than Solana, Solana is fast enough and cheap enough for 99% of people who are using crypto today. When Solana really took off, it was solving a pain point, and that was the fact that Ethereum transactions were so cheap. And so now, to be competitive, being extremely fast and cheap is the bare minimum to compete, but you also have to offer something new. Fortunately, I do think that Sui offers something new as well, and that is that they've onboarded a huge number of consumer applications that are promising to not just rehash the usual tokenomics incentives games that we see on other DeFi chains, and that I love personally, but they're promising to actually offer entirely new experiences that integrate an ownership-based internet with the experience that you expect from Web 2. And by the way, all of the information I'm going to talk about today, you can read about it in more detail in these guides that I've published on my Substack. I have a Sui one-pager that talks about the ecosystem and the essential information for you to know. And then I have a deep dive on Sui, including the many benefits of its Move programming language and other things about its ecosystem that I published earlier this year, both linked down in the description of this video. All right, so let's get a bit more into exactly what sets Sui apart. First thing is they recently launched this upgrade, the Mysticeti upgrade, that makes it even faster, higher throughput, lower computation costs, and lightning fast transactions across apps. And if you look at the traction on Sui, it's really started to take off since then. I'm looking at the total value locked, aka the deposits in DeFi protocols on Sui, and we can see that they have completely exploded since this summer, recently topping $1 billion to make Sui a top 10 chain for DeFi. One thing I want to note here, word of caution, is that although it's going up in USD terms, it's going down in terms of Sui, which means that a large portion of the growth, at least in recent weeks, has been driven by price increases. If we look at other on-chain stats, though, Sui is also growing. In recent weeks, the volume in on-chain DEXs, so decentralized exchanges, has also been taking off, growing from only $15 million on one day at the end of August to over $100 million in some days recently, and even on a bad day like yesterday, it still did over $60 million in volume. In other news, Circle, the creator of USDC, recently announced that native USDC would be coming to Sui. This is extremely important both to giving trust to stablecoins on the chain, increasing stablecoin liquidity on Sui, and ultimately to making Sui a valid platform for building payments and other stablecoin related applications. Another application that's really cool, and this is actually currently the most used application on Sui by active addresses, is known as Record. And so this is a platform for monetizing short videos. But what I think that's interesting about it is, first off, it's beneficial to content creators by allowing you to keep your ad revenue. But what's also really interesting is that there is an ongoing problem with the internet. And that problem is that it's almost impossible for advertisers to know whether views are real or not. And so you have advertisers spending money and they don't really know whether those ads are being seen by real people or bots or other things. And although social media platforms try to minimize this, it's not an easy task. So Record promises to use a blockchain-based system to actually verify real views. So I think that's interesting, and it's cool that they're building on Sui. Another interesting one is MoviePass. So MoviePass is continuing its crypto pivot, and they are partnering with Sui and a USDC integration. And then another interesting thing is that Sui is actually launching a handheld gaming device. Now, this is of course a big bet, unknown whether this will work out, but I do think these sorts of consumer hardware plays like Solana did with their phone, I think it's interesting to see people try something new. And to my point earlier, trying things that are entirely new and not just rehashing what's on other blockchains but faster is really what a chain needs to do to differentiate itself at this point. If all that sounds interesting to you, let's talk about how you can start using Sui today. First thing you'll need is a wallet that's compatible with Sui. And although there's a number of good options, one solid option that I've found is the Suiette wallet. You can see the link here or down in the description, and you install it, and its experience feels very similar to other browser-based wallets like Phantom. Once you download the wallet, you'll need to bridge to Sui some way. And although there are many exchanges that have it, if you're bridging from another chain on chain, then my preferred solution for this is RocketX. RocketX has hundreds of different chains on there, basically everything you can imagine. Solana, Ethereum, Cosmos-based chains, Ethereum layer 2s. They've got pretty much all of them on here, and you can easily swap tens of thousands of dollars between chains if you want to. So RocketX is my go-to, link in the description. All right, now let's talk about some DeFi and airdrop opportunities on Sui today. To start, we have Navi. This is the largest DeFi application by deposits on Sui, and it's a money market. You can lend assets like USDT, like Sui itself, even bridged assets like Wrapped ETH and Wrapped BTC. And if you look here, then you can see that the yields on some of these are not too bad, right? Around 10% on stablecoins, which is probably about what you would need to justify the risk of using a relatively new application like this. However, I think where this really stands out in terms of usage is that it lets you take your liquid staked Sui, so Sui that is earning yield elsewhere, like vSui, like HaSui, and then you can earn additional yield on it by depositing it into here. So we can see that you have the total yield of around 9.8% on this HaSui. And what exactly is HaSui, you may be asking? That is Sui that is staked through Hadl. Hadl is a liquid staking platform on Sui. It has about 38,000 users. And you stake your Sui, you receive HaSui, and then that HaSui automatically accrues rewards from being staked to secure the Sui network. And why do you care about this? First off, if you are not earning staking rewards and you're holding Sui, you're basically losing out to inflation. Even so, you're going to lose out to inflation because there's unlocks and things like that, but you're not getting any of the rewards, any of the emissions that other stakers are getting. So they're getting it, you're not. You're just basically leaving money on the table if you're not staking. And second, Hadl does not yet have a token. So by staking here, you potentially qualify for an airdrop. And although 38,000 is a lot of users, it's actually not that many users. If you recall, Jito, which was the leading liquid staking platform on Solana and was a 5-figure airdrop for basically everyone that got it, they only had around 10 or 11,000 people actually got the airdrop. And Hadel has more users than that. Don't know how many of them actually qualify, but that's actually not that many more users. So if this ends up blowing up, then I think this could be a solid airdrop. Another application that has a potential airdrop is Sui Lend. So this, like Navi, is a money market. You can deposit funds, you can borrow against funds, and they have some special Sui incentives now, which means that they have good yields on some of these assets. However, they also don't have a token, and in fact they have a points program, which means that they're extremely likely to do an airdrop at some point. Sometimes these platforms like to drag out their points programs months. I mean, there's one right now that I won't name that's been doing one for over a year. Not this one, but there's a different application on a different chain. So that can happen. However, it still means that they're almost certainly going to do an airdrop at some point. So these yields will in effect be higher because you're earning this yield plus whatever the future airdrop is. If you really want to pump up your yields a bit more, then another option would be Thesis. Thesis is a decentralized exchange for swapping between different forms of Sui. So for example, you can swap between Sui and Sui on here. Aside from the fact that that's useful, you may also find this useful for earning yield, where you can earn around 9% by pairing these two applications. And one thing I'll note is, although we don't know what the ultimate criteria will be for the Hadel airdrop, if there is one, oftentimes these platforms reward you extra for actually using their asset in DeFi rather than just holding it in your wallet. The next DeFi application to check out on Sui is known as Turbos Finance, and with Turbos, you can swap between Sui and a whole range of other tokens, majors like USDC and wrapped ETH, and also smaller tokens like newer meme coins, as well as liquid staking variants of Sui itself. But what I think Turbos is really interesting for is that if you are a hardcore yield person, if you know what you're doing with concentrated liquidity, then Turbos is probably the place for you on Sui. You can see here that you can earn up to very high APRs on here. And the reason you can do that is you are providing liquidity for a more narrow range of prices. Now, if you don't know what that means, you've never done concentrated liquidity before, probably it's going to be easier for you to stick to some of these simpler strategies, learn a little bit about concentrated liquidity, and then you can come back and try this. If you want a full guide on how to do this, drop a comment and I may do one. But in this video, I'm just going to say, if you know how to do concentrated liquidity, Turbos is a place for you. If you don't, you may still find it useful both for trading and for using their automated rebalance vault that's in this yield strategy section here. And again, I wouldn't expect to actually earn these APYs they are indicating here, because those are really like best case scenario. However, if you go here, they have some automated strategies for providing liquidity. You can see they have one for secure savers, yield chasers, as well as DeFi pros, and you can deposit either Sui, USDC, or Sui and USDC for this particular strategy. And then the final application that I want to highlight today is known as Aftermath Finance. Aftermath Finance is a yield aggregator. So you can both swap on here, which is cool. Most yield aggregators don't do that. Or you can farm across a variety of applications. And you can see here that they've got pretty decent APRs for example, Sui USDC LP. Now, before you go out and buy Sui or start using the chain, I want to highlight some risks with its tokenomics that you really need to understand before investing. If we look at CoinGecko for coin market caps and prices, then we can see that currently Sui is around rank 26 with a market cap of $4.6 billion. And so you're probably thinking, great, right? Lots of room to grow. It could go all the way into the top 10, right? And that would be more than a tripling from where it is now. However, there is a issue, and the issue is that compared to most large tokens, Sui has a relatively high fully diluted valuation. So what this is, if you're not familiar with the terminology, this is basically the market cap if all of the Sui that is not yet in circulation were to be released into circulation. And so you can see something like, for example, Bitcoin, that has been around for longer than any other coins or tokens, the fully diluted valuation is only a bit higher than the market cap because most Bitcoin are already in circulation. Even something like Solana that has gotten hit for having unlocks in the past, the fully diluted valuation is only around 26% above the circulating market cap. However, if you look at Sui, the fully diluted valuation is nearly 4 times the current market cap. And in fact, if you look at the largest assets by fully diluted valuation, then Sui is already close to the top 10. And the point of this isn't to tell you not to buy Sui. The point is to tell you that you have to be careful, especially if you're planning on holding this for the long term. And I mean, say 6 months, a year, multiple years, right? A lot of those tokens are going to come onto the market, and that is going to be a lot of sell pressure. And if you look here on token unlocks, then you can see that there is basically a steady stream of unlocks going out multiple years from now. So you can expect that there's going to be continuous sell pressure, and basically Sui has to generate the demand to make up for that sell pressure. That's all for today. For more videos like this one, be sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.